Howdy again, it's Mr. Pete, your inner web shop teacher, and this is episode number 74 of my This and That series. I haven't had one in a long time. I hope you enjoy it. This will be a long one, and I probably won't include everything, but we're going to have some viewer appreciation gifts and updates and things like that. So I hope you watch the whole thing. Lots of still pictures at the end. Now let me start off by saying that just 2 days ago, that is on St. Valentine's Day of 2023, I got a package in the mail from one Mr. James Restano, and you may remember that a couple years ago he gave me this model of a Bridgeport, and now he sent another one, quite a few changes to this, modifications over this, so there'll be a standalone video for that, and it's in the can along with about 25 other videos, so be sure and watch for all this stuff as I release it slowly over a period of time. But I'm releasing 3 or 4 per week, so make sure you do a search if you're not notified by YouTube. So let's begin. Do you remember in the last episode where I picked up this little pamphlet here from General Motors? Mainly, this is from the 30s, because I love the cover art, and it had a label right here, a price label. I was able to get that off through suggestions from viewers, and I used my wife's hairdryer is what I used. But since then, one Mr. Joe Kiefer sent me a copy of that, and it is in a frame ready to hang up. So thank you, Joe, for that. Out of Jacksonville, Florida. Love this type of artwork. I am constantly looking through old Mechanics Illustrated and Popular Science and so on. And last month I showed you a picture of George Goebel doing something in his home workshop. Well, here's another celebrity for you older guys who remember Smiley Burnette. So there he is in his home workshop doing a little blacksmithing and other type of work. He was a sidekick, of course, to many different cowboys in the 40s and 50s. About 10 years ago, my brother was at the... About 10 years ago, my brother was at the Cowboy Hall of Fame out in Oklahoma, I believe is where it is, and they had Smiley Burnette's hat in a showcase, and my brother put his forehead against that glass to get as close as he could, because we always wondered as kids, we wanted our hats to be ugly like this, so how did they put that brim up? Upon close examination, it was simply a safety pin from the wardrobe department. Might you remember that Mr. Dave Pigeon gave me this little holder in the last episode for our Christmas present? And there's the name of the company, but I filled it with taps and dies. There is a tap and a tap drill and a clearance drill for all of those sizes, real handy to keep on the workbench for those small model projects. A few weeks ago, Mr. Steve Martin sent me this wrench, and he sent me an email saying he had an Atlas wrench, and I've never actually seen one like this. It's 6-point on each end, and it's marked Atlas. However, at this point, I do not believe this is from a lathe, because here is a wrench from my Atlas lathe, and it's clearly marked Atlas Press Company. So, thank you anyway, Steve, but I don't believe it belongs with a lathe. But I'll find a use for it, 1/2 inch and 9/16, and I love 6-point. Hate 12-point, sorry to tell you. Just a couple days ago I talked about this little lamp. I bought 4 of these for $1.25 each at the $1.25 store. And many people went down and bought one after that, but I think that was a regional thing. Maybe not every $1.25 store had this in stock. But anyway, I love it. But let me show you what I did with one already. First of all, this one just came out of the box, but I took the base out of one, And by the way, someone said that the base is cement or concrete, and it is indeed. I sawed into it a little bit with a carbide blade, and it is concrete. Very fine aggregate, so that's one of the reasons they can make them so cheap. But this was some kind of a clear out because you couldn't make them that cheap. But let me show you what I did with that after I removed this. Alright, I'm over at my Boyce Crane 14-inch metal cutting saw, and for years I had this little lamp on here, and I'm going to throw it away. I hate it because it is so hot. You burn yourself on it constantly, and it uses this type of incandescent bulb, so in the garbage can they go. But here is what I did with the Sunbeam, and I screwed a little aluminum plate that I made up, this real thin gauge, and this in turn is screwed to the cover, and I have it wired such that this comes on when I turn the saw on. And yes, that vibrates like a tuning fork, but the light is pretty steady and can be adjusted, so that's my first use for the $1.25 lamp. From time to time I like to show examples of very well packed merchandise. Here's a box that came from Tennessee by UPS, given to me by Mark Webb, and it arrived in perfect condition, but look at the way he taped this with the fiberglass tape. Now that's $2 or $3 worth of tape that he used because it's the wide stuff, the 2-inch wide. Okay, let's see what's in this box. Look at the packing. Holy mackerel. Protected the ends. Now here's a guy that knows how to pack. And then the box inside, look at the way it's taped. My gosh, this would survive a trip to the moon. And the contents here, you saw how they were wrapped, and then inside the white packing, everything is packed in washcloths, and I think they're brand new, not used. So these 3 wrenches are my Christmas present from Tennessee from Mark Webb. Thank you very, very much, Mark, and thank you to everybody that has sent me things, given me things and encouragement and all of that. But anyway, Mark is a blacksmith, among other things, and an extremely talented one. So all of these are, I'm going to call them Damascus twist. So look at the beautiful pattern, and it's been etched. And these tools were made for me by him to use on my closing lathe. And look at this chuck wrench along with his blacksmith stamp. So let me show you how these are to be used. Here's another one. I do not know for sure what this is supposed to fit. Maybe he'll tell me. There's X, that's his mark as well. And right here. So turning right around to the closing lathe. So we have here this beautiful chuck key, and it does fit just right. So I can think about Mr. Webb every time I use that. Then the spanner wrench is designed and built to fit this locking collar here that locks the chucks on. It's got the right radius and all of that, and believe me, there's plenty of leverage on there compared to the regular factory one. I can find the hole back there. So that's going to work great to take the chuck off. Thank you very much, Mr. Mark Webb. Look at that pattern. Pretty nifty. Thank you to Kent Hansen from Down Under, who sent me 2 beautiful cartoons here. And these are cartoons of me, my first year teaching shop. I'm about to be strangled there as I strike that kid over the head, and you can examine this. A lot of things going on here. It's pretty funny. and I appreciate that. Let's take a look at the other one. I'll put stills of these at the end if you want a little more time to examine them. You know, for several years there I taught what's called general metals, where you're doing all kinds of different things, welding and foundry and bench metal and sheet metal, all in the same shop, and this is pretty much what goes on. And there I am checking out a student's project. That's my favorite student right there. The other ones I'm not so sure about. Remember a few months ago when I bought this at a garage sale? It's a surface gauge, nicely made, but I haven't been able to identify the manufacturer. And it came with an extra rod here as well, which is off camera, but no name on here whatsoever. But it was identified for me as being sold with the Sears Craftsman label on the box, but not on the tool itself. So let me show you that picture out of the Sears catalog real quickly. Jim Munger sent me an email, and he had this picture which came from Vintage Machinery out of the 1972 Sears catalog, and at that time it was $23. And Jim had one, and here is the box. Thank you, Jim. The other day Barry Schmalling sent me these two stickers. Actually, one's a sticker and one's a magnet. And this is the old Delta Milwaukee label before it became Delta Rockwell, and then I don't know what it morphed into, but it's not good anymore. But I'm going to slap this magnetic one on my much more modern Delta 14-inch saw right now. Watch. And there we go. I've been getting Motor Trend magazine for 40 years, but anyway, when I go to the Chicago Auto Show, they always have this caliper in a showcase for whatever car won that year, or SUV or truck or whatever. But since I love calipers, I put my head right up against that glass case and got as close as I could, and sure enough, it said Starrett on it. And that was also the time that I met Ricardo Montalban. Remember I showed pictures of that? And there it is. Do you remember in the last episode when I was at an auction and I saw them selling this steam engine? And I showed you a clip of it. But at that same Mecum auction over in the Quad Cities, they sold a Diamond T truck. And there's something very unusual, and I want to show you clips of that are about 2 or 3 months old right now. What a beautiful truck. But when you ship your truck or car, make sure that you have good tie downs, good straps, good chains, so you don't damage it. Here is my Christmas presents from Paul St. Marie. Thank you ever so much, Paul. He's been a big supporter of my channel, and these came directly from Amazon along with a gift card. And there's his name, and beautifully wrapped. So in here are knee pads. Paul knows I have complained about my knees and getting down low and working on things, so hey, look at there. There's a pair of knee pads. And if that's not enough, look what's in this package. My wife will, of course, want to reuse these bags. You know how women are. And there's some kneeling pads. 2 of them. Still packaged. That'd be particularly handy when I work on tractors and cars and machinery and so on. Boy, that's over 1 inch thick. 1.25 inches each. Thank you, Paul. You're a good man. 3 years ago, Doug Bollinger sent me this fine point marker. Many people ask about this, so again, here's where you get them. And not just from Doug, because Doug had to buy them someplace. So Doug sends me this stuff right after Christmas, and there's 2 more of these. Remember, these are made in Germany. They are quite expensive. You can find them on Amazon. They are not cheap, but they are wonderful, just wonderful. One of the things you can do with these, since it's a long reach, if we wanted it to mark that hole so you can reach into a hole. But as well as the markers, he sent me a couple other things here, mainly these gears, which will fit an Atlas lathe. These are 3D printed. There's a little collar also, and that is to be used as follows. So these are called transposing gears, and they can be used on an Atlas Craftsman lathe to allow you to cut metric threads. So he gave me several pages here on how to use them. I hope to make a video, if it's not too hard for me, along with all kinds of spreadsheets here showing how to use them and the configuration and the settings and all of that for metric thread. So I hope to give that a try, Doug, if I can figure it out. Not totally sure what this is. It doesn't match up. He didn't say. So Paul used these gears to make this 16mm screw and probably a commercially made nut, and it works just fine. This little advertisement is in a 1953 Popular Science, tiny little lathe for $80, and I think that the boys over at Lost Creek have that. I need to go over and check. When we were teenagers, we did a lot of plinking, and one of my favorite brands of ammo were the Remington rockets. And they came in a little windowed package like chiclets, and they fit in your shirt pocket beautifully. They were my favorite. I've talked endlessly over the years about the micrometer teaching aid that I used to make along with my brother, and we sold 10,000 of them. But I found this picture in a magazine the other day from the 50s, 1958 as a matter of fact, and there someone had made a huge micrometer teaching aids. I suppose those are a couple students in a class, but my brother made one about that size when we were teaching, or when we were training for teaching. And at that time we realized that this big bulky C-frame here served really no purpose and made the thing difficult to handle and store, and hence the fact that we made them like this to simplify them and make it easier to manufacture and ship. Noticed in the text that it says no costly bulky C-frame, thus facilitating storage and handling, like we were doing them a favor. In this 1953 magazine, there's an article about building a little steam engine. So there's a father and son project. So I asked Henry, would you like to make that with me? And he said, nah, and he turned away and started using his stupid tablet. Let me show you the other pictures here and blueprints of this, if anyone's interested. Here's the text on the title page. I'm going to put the drawings at the end of the video with the pictures. Thank you very much to the 4 of you that sent me gift cards, 3 of them from Dunkin' Donut and a very generous one to Farm and Fleet, one of my favorite stores. I'm out in the garage next to the South Bend Mill, and I want you to take note of the condensation that causes tremendous rust. Now I'll zoom in on that. Today is December 28th, 2022, and we had a terrible cold spell last week, and it was down to 0, but today it's up to almost 60 degrees, so look at the condensation. Can you see that or not? But there's actually puddles. Let me lay a paper towel on there, and you'll see how quickly the water is coming through. Now that's water, not oil. And can you see this down here as well? You could actually squeegee the water off. But that is what causes this terrible rust in unheated buildings. So I'm going to wipe this all down today and put some more of this on. And this is really a good product, the LPS number 3. However, it is extremely difficult to clean off and remove in the spring. It's very sticky, but it does prevent rust. One more thing. Up on the column here, can you see the sweat? Just wherever you look, there's just a lot of water. It's actually puddled up down here in places. And that is why, over the years, I do tend to, if I think of it, take my chucks and vices into the warm house for the winter. And I'm going to do that today because it's finally warm enough out here where I can work a little bit. I think I'll take this vise on the shaper as well. So in the comments, if you have that problem where you are, let me know. And there might be people down in the southern states that are unaware of this sweating and condensation problem that we suffer from in the Midwest and the far north. Well, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Lots of pictures to come at the end, so I'll see you next time.